Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host Bailey, and today we have a super fun guest, Miss Jackie. And Miss Jackie is not only a super mom of 10 children, but she's also a former homeschool mom, a faith-based life coach, as well as an author. So I will let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Well, thank you. I think you pretty much said it all, but I'll just reiterate. So, yes, I'm a mom of 10 children. I homeschooled for almost 20 years. So the first three graduated through homeschool. And then I felt like God was saying, you need to put the other ones in school. And so I did. I obeyed. I did that. And I knew I needed to. And from there, I went to 2 years of Bible school, then became a covenant life coach, which is a faith-based life coach. And then, yeah, I'm working on my third book. And so anyway, it's been a journey.
That's awesome. When was your first book published? How long have you been working on that?
The first book was published October of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on it I started in February of 2021, writing all the chapter titles down.
What got you into writing?
Yeah, well, I knew I was actually working with a paid coach, and she asked me, she said, "What is on your heart?" And I said, "I think I have a book." And so she was like, "Let's lay the chapter titles out." And I was like, okay. I had never done anything like that before. I had never written anything down about a book. And I knew every chapter. Like I knew every title, every event that had happened, that God had showed me something, how just grown me through the circumstance or whatever. And so that's where it started. So it took me, for about 1.5 years-ish or so to write the first book and finally get it published. So.
When did you first put your kids into public school? Like when did you stop homeschooling?
So that was about 5 or 6 years ago. So I knew, this was just what I knew. I knew I needed to go to Bible school and they needed to go to school. It was just like the season had changed. Previous to that, we had a home business, like a family business that we had shut down. And so it felt like that kind of went along with the homeschooling because we could involve our kids a lot in that business. And when that shut down, it seemed like that season of homeschool shut down as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
When you homeschooled, what was, because I'm interested in homeschooling our kids when they get a little bit older, what sort of schedule did you have? Like your day-to-day life, what did you do?
Yeah, so started homeschooling. I had 4 kids at the time. All of our kids are every other year. So I was pregnant or nursing for about 20 years. And,
oh my gosh.
So
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I had 4 kids. Yeah, it's a long season of just doing that.
Definitely.
So as far as the homeschool side of it goes, what I started out doing was we would do the bookwork school in the morning, and then the afternoon would be anything maybe they didn't finish, or if there was some other type of work they could do with our business or other project or whatever. So I kind of kept a routine like that because that way the younger kids could nap. I could have a break or do laundry or do the, things. So that's basically the routine I kept as we grew the family of 10 children.
Is there a curriculum that you would like to recommend? I know that a lot of people use, I think it's like The Good and the Beautiful. Is that kind of a curriculum that you would recommend, or is there something else that you focused on?
Yeah, I haven't heard of The Good and the Beautiful. So that might be a newer one from when
you'll check
when
it out. Yeah.
But the ones that I used, I liked, it was called ACE, the ACE curriculum. So it's ACE. And it was one where there were small workbooks for each subject. So it was like the kids could finish one within a month. feeling like
And go
they
on to the next one.
succeeded or got something done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they could finish. So that one worked well for me with using some different things along the way too. I can't actually quite remember all the names of the different ones.
I know you probably tested a lot of them since you had so many. So many kids, there's probably so much different curriculum out there also that you could just like try and test out. But with being a mom of so many children, like first of all, you are amazing because just having these two, it's a lot. But had you always wanted to be a parent?
Yes, I knew I always wanted to be a parent. I didn't ever really think about how many kids, except for in my family, there was the three of us girls and then a half brother that came a little bit later on. And so I think I just thought it'd be something like that, 3 or 4 kids or something.
Are any of your children multiples? I'm sorry, were any of your children multiples or were they all single pregnancies?
Yeah, they were all single. We didn't have any twins. And it's interesting because early on when we decided to have a large family, we were like, we didn't have a number in mind, so we said we would take one at a time. So that's what happened. We took one
it worked out. Yeah. Definitely, yeah. I'm really genetically predisposed to have twins, like on both my mom and my dad's side. So it was bound to happen to me. So we always talk about, maybe we'll have another one, but I am terrified of 2 more at a time because that is something that I don't know if I'm strong enough to do. Oh my gosh.
Well, look at all you've learned now.
I know.
Look at all you've learned so far.
I know. And then I guess a follow-up question is, what did you think being a parent was going to be like?
Well, and there again, too, I think I just thought it would look similar to the way my mom did it or the way I was raised. I don't feel like I put a lot of thought into it. The one thing I remember, and that's the reason I chose homeschooling, was that I wanted to have more of a connection with my kids, just have a better relationship or a stronger one than maybe I had felt I had, growing up. But even though I had a great growing up years, but yeah.
I guess, since you had to do it 10 times, what would you describe as your favorite birth experience and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so the favorite birth experience would have been my 9th baby. And the last 3 were actually, the babies were sunny side up. So that means that they were turned, so they weren't engaging the cervix. I don't know if you know about that a little bit, but anyway, so the one before that had the same situation, but I didn't know. So with him, I decided to get on my hands and knees, and I had all hospital births. I didn't have any at home. The last
did you consider home birth?
But I considered it, but my husband wasn't as much for it. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just do
mine too.
So, yeah. So anyway, with my 9th, I was asking more questions each time, I think. And I realized that getting on your hands and knees would be a better position for birth.
Definitely.
So I asked if we could do that. And they agreed. The beds actually at our hospital could fold down to birth that way. They have a way to fold them down that way. So anyway, I did that, and there were he came out so fast, and
well, that's awesome.
All went smooth. Yeah, so that was a favorite one because I got to do a different position. I didn't have an epidural. Some different things, and yeah. It was amazing. So I recommend if, anyone's wondering, that possibility of hands and knees.
Did you have an epidural before? Had you had one before in any of your other?
Yeah, I probably half of them had epidurals. And those, I can only say that one of them really worked. very well. The other one seemed like they were given at just the time when I was about to have the baby, so I didn't even really when
Reap the
they
benefits.
needed it.
Yeah.
But I do say, like I tell my girls now that are having babies, if you get an epidural or if you are induced, you probably are going to need an epidural because the contractions come on a lot stronger and it's just a more intense labor. So the epidural is helpful, especially in those cases. But
Yeah,
it can
definitely.
be different for everyone.
Yeah, I ended up getting the epidural mostly because I had always like planned or what I envisioned like giving birth would be like with that. Like I would try to do it as natural as possible or like, without any interventions. But with them being two and they came at 34 weeks, like I ended up actually having to be induced at 34 and 1 just because I had a premature rupture of my membranes at 34 for one of them. And so I was in the hospital and they induced me and they kind of told me, you're probably going to want an epidural because if something happens and baby B flips, we're either going to have to do an emergency C-section or manually rotate the baby inside you. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to feel any of that. So I'll just go ahead and get the epidural. We can go ahead and do that.
Right.
But
Yeah,
so what
that's
would you
cool.
say
Do you
is
feel like it,
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I was going to say, do you feel like the epidural worked well for you? Was it
I
beneficial just for you?
I think it was beneficial in terms of I had that like in the back of my mind, I was like, if something really bad happens, I won't feel it as much. But because nothing bad did happen, it kind of seemed like a waste of doing that. But I was already kind of in so much pain just from being pregnant with them that when I was starting to have the contractions that were bigger because of the being induced, I was already in so much pain that like it didn't even like really matter the contraction pain. I didn't really feel it. So like when I got the epidural, I don't know, just I'm probably not describing that very good, but there was just like so much going on that like I didn't feel anything anyway. I don't I don't know if that makes
Right.
sense. But,
Yeah, it was
and
also
also,
new and
yeah. And by the time like I got the epidural and when they were born, it was like no time at all. So yeah, kind of like what you were saying, I didn't really reap any of the benefits because I only really felt it for like maybe an hour. And I don't think I really had that much epidural in me because I felt a lot of the stuff right after, I guess, like I delivered both of the placentas. I felt like I felt kind of all of that. And then I was able to move my legs too. And the nurses were like, oh, like, you're not supposed to have been able to move your legs that easily. I was like, oh, okay.
right.
But what would you say
Yeah.
is your most difficult birth experience?
Well, the difficult one, it was interesting. So it was the one, my eighth baby, the one right before that, one I described about on my hands and knees. And so going in, my eighth baby, I thought, okay, this is going to go quick. We had two of our older daughters come in with us. The first time ever having some of our kids watching, instead of just my husband and I and being apart. So it was kind of, I was like, oh, cool, this is going to be exciting.
It's a
Well, it
family
ended up, yeah, but it ended up that the baby didn't come. Like the girls went home because it was taking too long. We ended up going in or being there from early morning until through the next night. And the labor wasn't horribly hard because he was sunny side up. So it wasn't engaging.
Yeah.
It was just like, so the reason that it became so hard is because it went so long.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I got tired. Definitely
It
I
was
found
hard.
that if I was mentally tired or just physically tired, it was harder, to go through the process. So, but I remember because I'm a woman of faith, right? I believe God. So I said to God, I'm like, you are going to have to give me strength because the doctor didn't want to give me an epidural. He wanted me to be able to feel pressure
When
and
you're ready.
everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I said, God, you're going to have to give me strength to do this because I was wiped out
Pretty
for being up
scary.
for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I actually felt like strength was given to me
Mm-hmm.
to finish the process. So
To
I,
push
as
through it.
hard
Yeah.
as it was, because it went so long, God showed up for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was just an amazing part of the difficult one, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Well, that's
So
super awesome that you
he's,
were able to feel that. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
yeah.
How would you say you have changed mentally and emotionally after having so many children?
So I have a lot more um, mental strength to
Mm-hmm.
get through hard things, I think, and determination to get through, you know. So I would say that, and just in a spot of not being so moved by circumstances and things that come up, because you can imagine, well, even with twins, like I never did two at a time that way,
Mm-hmm.
like you did, but with so many needs in the home, I just have learned to like do one thing at a time and not get overwhelmed and not grow anxious, but
Mm-hmm.
just to stay calm and walk with God in it, knowing He's with me and helping me. And so, yeah, I just feel like I've gained a lot of strength and all around, um,
Mm-hmm. Also, shout
mentally
out to
and
you.
even.
Yeah, shout out to you. Also, like you're very physically strong because I cannot imagine having to be like running around after so many kids and then having to also like deal with your kids when they become older. So then you're working with also not only dealing with children, but also teens, which is like a totally different
Yeah,
battle here. Yeah, definitely. Because sometimes I feel
yeah.
like I don't know how I'm going to handle when my kids are old enough to kind of like fight me back in a way. Like, I don't know like
Mm-hmm.
how like, I'm going to handle that. So just like props to you for everything. And how would you say, how have the relationships you've had with others changed because of becoming a parent?
Well, we've walked through a lot of different things. I I know we've learned boundaries and not to be necessarily like the thought of being people pleasers, but doing what we feel led to do with our kids and
Mm-hmm.
not trying to be someone that compares with other people or does what the friends' parents think or even what our own parents think. We definitely
Mm-hmm.
honor our parents, but we found that we were the ones that needed to make the decisions and then hold to boundaries or you know
Mm-hmm.
decide what goes with our
Mm-hmm.
family and also respecting the other ones. So
Yeah. Did
I
you
guess
get a
that
lot
would
of
be
like,
how we were.
did you get a lot of pushback or negativity when you decided to homeschool your children from anybody?
Yeah, there was a lot of people, it was it's a controversial subject.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, we had people that would be like, why would you do that? Why are you doing that? And then others that would be in agreement. So we just tried to walk in the leading we were feeling from God
Mm-hmm.
as to what to do. Cause I, I was through public school and a couple years in a private school. And so I wasn't against that. So I didn't make decisions also on fear. It was more like what I was being led to do. I didn't want to be afraid of the public school system or some other, way, just walked in being led. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, because we're considering doing homeschool, and I'm really for it, and so like I'm part of all these Facebook groups of people who are also homeschooling, and they talk about how they get a lot of pushback from like friends and family. So, do you have any advice for those parents on how to like, kind of interact with the people who are being negative towards them about it?
hmm Yeah, well, I think if you're set with your husband that this is the direction for your family, then does it really have to matter what other people think? We're
Mm-hmm.
always in all we do, there's going to be the ones that are for or against, but what if it didn't really matter? You were just doing what you were led to do for your family is kind of the
Mm-hmm.
thought. Um, and just to leave space for the people, like, okay, that's okay if you don't agree, kind of that type
Mm-hmm.
of attitude. Everyone has reasons why they are for or against things.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
guess that would be mine. Just being solid with your husband. No, this is what we're led to do. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well,
setting
did
out
you
some
have,
other.
well, I was going to ask you, were there any resources that you used or you wish were available to you when you were pregnant or after you had your children?
Um, the resources that I liked using. So since I was going toward a big family, I liked listening to. So at the time, we didn't have all the online stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
have you heard of the 19 Kids and Counting? The gal that
Yes,
had
I have.
19 kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would listen to. I would get their videos. The kids liked watching them too. Some of
Mm-hmm.
their seasons they had out, and so I would get some even like she had at least one where she was speaking about her family, and then there was another group. It was called Above Rubies at the time that I would just listen to this mom who had, I think she had 6 kids or something, and they were just encouraging. They would share their life a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I also got resources like for large families on how to set up like large family logistics in the home and homeschooling large families and setting up chores. So I was really kind of organized, and I also learned to be very flexible because things would always change with that many kids in the house. But I tried to just look at resources that were options. And today there's so many with Google and
Yeah,
stuff that
definitely.
you can go and, you know, put what
Facebook
you're
group.
looking for in and yeah, and Facebook groups and stuff. So
Did you were you
yeah.
part of any sort of like communities where you live that had other women that also had large families or homeschool families that you guys were able to interact with?
Yeah, not so many large families as we were homeschooling, but we were in a homeschool group that we would meet. I think it was once a month. And then slowly it evolved into there would be a couple classes, like an art class or something that they could join. But there too, there's so many co-ops. Our town didn't have so much because we're in a little bit smaller area, but there's so many options for parents that want to homeschool now with the different co-ops and the online groups and
Yeah, definitely.
so yeah, I would
Yeah, some of the
definitely recommend
yeah, some
that,
of the groups like
getting
I'm in on Facebook. Yeah, like they have
on.
like group field trips like every month, or they say like, oh, like we're gonna do this class. You guys want to come? And so it's really awesome that
Yeah.
there's this whole just like online communities where you can make friends now that you wouldn't have even known existed 20 years ago. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So, how would you say your religious views have influenced your parenting?
um, every part of it. Like
Yeah.
if so, believing that. I remember when I was homeschooling, it was always like, "Am I using the right curriculum?" Well, when I thought of what the word says, it says that I'm led by the Spirit of God. So I started following that. Like, no, I don't need to be worried that I'm not using the right curriculum. I'm led by the Spirit of God, and so that's if he wants me to use something different, I'm willing. So I would listen and um, just ask God how do I
Mm-hmm.
run my home efficiently with this many kids, and he would give me creative ideas on how to organize the home and set up the routines so that it flowed. as best it could, not perfectly, of course, because, but also just learning to be flexible and, having a routine is wonderful, but not being able to be flexible with it, then that would create struggle. So I learned to be flexible and not a perfectionist, because that too, I found that if I got upset about spilled milk or, things not going the way I wanted them to, then I was showing my kids that I loved a perfect flow or a clean house more than them. And so I learned to just, love them and walk with God and know that I started from a place of being loved because I'm a child of God. And so then anything that came up with my kids, it wasn't directly related to me. Like I was already loved. So because they disobeyed or their behavior was bad or whatever, it didn't make me feel unloved. You know what I mean? Or in a place of definitely. Like, oh no. So everything about my life is around my beliefs and my relationship with God, and it's made a huge difference.
Well, that's super duper awesome. Were you raised in a pretty religious household? Is your family pretty religious?
Yeah, our family was always in church. And as I grew, though, I realized that it's so much more, because not all of the, there can be like religious teaching and then just a relationship with God. And so that's what I started going toward more, is just walking with God in my everyday and not being, there was no judgment or no condemnation or anything around my life. It was just, I'm doing this with God and loving my kids, loving people, and so
that's awesome.
It created a simple way of doing life just with God. And we great. Were in church for a lot of years too. So, yeah.
Well, do you have any advice for new parents or pregnant people?
So I would say if you can, so I know for me that as I grew my family and, became a parent and all the things that I realized I had to work on myself, whether it was in my marriage, with my kids. I had to choose to grow myself because I can't change my husband. The kids weren't always doing what I wanted them to do. And so the importance of personal growth through all that and for me, spiritual growth just really helped me to rise up as a parent, as a wife, and now as a woman in business and an author, having things that I can share and help other people too. So,
well, that's great. Well, awesome, Miss Jackie. Where can we find you on social media in case people want to reach out to you and have any questions for you or want to talk about your book or talk about your life coaching?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook as a YouTube account anyway, and it's just under Jackie Dighans.
Okay, so and in the show notes, I'll put all of your info too. And like on YouTube, I'll also put it in the description so people can find you.
And then my book is called Covered, and it's Living in Triumph While Going Through Trials. And it's on Amazon. So you can find it under my name. And so.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'll definitely link everything so that people can find you. But do you have any last words?
Yeah, and just that, I'm also a coach and I do group and one-on-one coaching with people. Right now I'm taking groups through my book for like a 7-week period. So if anyone's interested in jumping in on one of those, they can find me, message me, and get in touch. So,
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much
you.
for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me, Bailey.
Yeah, thanks so much. Talk to you later. Yeah, I'll go ahead and